Everything that I want to share with you today is specific to this year. As I've explained in previous classes, this year we are in a situation of shas hadchak, of extraordinary circumstances that calls for different procedures and different standards to be used. And so what I'm sharing this today is not necessarily what would apply in other years, but does apply this year. And I have two underlying goals as I share with you how to prepare for an unprecedented Passover 2020. Two goals, two practical goals for everything that I'm going to say. Number one, I want to try to help reduce the number of times you leave your home. Stay home. All of the evidence from around the world shows that self-isolation helps. And therefore, whatever I can do to provide guidance to help you stay home and not have to go out, or go out less frequently, or go out for shorter periods of time, that is what I want to try to do. That's number one. Number two, I want to try to reduce stress. I want to try to help protect our emotional as well as our physical health. Both of them are equally important and require our effort to protect. Earlier today, I sent out an email with resources for this unprecedented Passover. Now, I will be resending this email frequently with updates, but I want to review it now with you. If you have it, you can refer to it. If not, you'll hear the information. If you did not receive this email earlier today, please let me know. I want to make sure that you are able to receive it. So in this email, I provided, first of all, my own personal recordings and links. So these are the Zoom sessions that we've had so far. Cleaning your house for Pesach in 1 hour. How to lead a Seder. The document that provides the authorization and the instructions for selling your Chometz this year, where there are two important differences between this year and other years. A letter that I've written on not being able to say Kaddish now, that I hope you will find provides guidance and help if you're in that situation. And then links to a number of audio classes, audio recordings of classes that I've given over the years that relate to Passover, that hopefully will be helpful to you in preparing for Passover and in preparing for the Seder and for experiencing Passover in general. So the first section is the links that I myself provided. The second section, I provided resources and links to this for this unprecedented Passover 2020. So I provided a video called DIY, Do It Yourself, How to Kosher Your Kitchen for Pesach, presented by the CRC. Very clear-cut, easy to follow, and I will follow up with more information. A different Pesach, ideas for the solo Seder. This year, many of us will be observing Pesach by ourselves. I'm going to be talking more about this later, but this is an excellent and creative resource of how to navigate this particular experience. Many of us will be leading a Seder for the first time, not expecting that we would ever do so. Many of us may be leading a Seder and perhaps have never even attended a Seder. So leading a Seder for the first time by NGOP, there are two videos that are there, one video and one document. Then I provided two substantive links to understanding the Haggadah. One is the structure of the Haggadah by Rabbi Rimon. It's an excellent YouTube video that you can use to prepare your Seder. And the other is a shorter video by Rabbi Jonathan Sachs, the story we tell, a very important message for Pesach this year and all years. Then I provided several resources, links to resources of products that require no kosher for Passover supervision. I'm going to say more about this later, but please note, I've provided for you a resource from the OU that is OU products that do not require any kosher for Passover supervision in order to use for Passover. That applies this year and every year. Similarly, a document from the Star K applies this year and any year. Then I provided 3 more documents that apply only this year. A document called the Pesach Cheat Sheet, a document from the London Bet Din, and a document from the Association of Kosher Organizations, also known as ACO, that contain leniencies in products to be able to use this year without any kosher for Passover certification. You are welcome, and I urge you to use information from any one of these lists. There may be slight differences in the list. You may find one thing one place and not in another place. If you find it on this list, feel comfortable to use it, especially if by using something that you already have, you are able to eliminate or reduce trips outside of your home. This year, on Eruv Pesach, Wednesday, April 8th, we will be making an Eruv Tavshilin. I will discuss that later, and I've given you a guide to that ceremony. Also, this year, very unprecedented, Yizkor will take place on the 8th day of Pesach. And Yizkor does not require a minyan, so whoever is saying it will be saying it home, but I provided the entire text. I provided the text that we use at a DAF from our booklet to be able for you to print out before Yom Tov and use for your Yizkor service. In addition, I provided some miscellaneous links. A great short video and article from Natan Sharansky. Natan Sharansky knows what it's like to live in isolation. His experience was in the Soviet Gulag. So he provides tips for going through quarantine and isolation that I think will be very, very helpful. Also, a wonderful article by a colleague of mine, Rabbi Judah Kerbel. He wrote an article about fighting COVID through each Amidah blessing. And what he does is goes through each blessing of the weekday Amidah and adds a thought or a meditation that relates to our situation. I found this to be a wonderful companion to daily prayer, and I urge you, print it out and make use of it in your prayers. I also want to provide not just religious material, any resources or links to entertainment that I can provide, I'm going to provide. So Reframe Films is a source of excellent films that normally requires payment. However, they've removed the payment requirement, and this site is available now with no password, no payment necessary. There are a number of excellent films there, and I urge you to take the opportunity to enjoy them. This situation can cause even the best of relationships to experience difficulty. So I've provided you with an article, Till Coronavirus Do Us Apart, by Gavin Sharp, how coronavirus can test relationships and how to successfully navigate this. I urge you, if this is relevant to you, please make use of it. Then, of course, I provided this year's schedule of early Shabbat starting times. I'll be referring to many of these later. If there is any other resource that you would find helpful, please let me know, and I will do my best to provide it. Concerning the products with no kosher for Passover supervision, that for which there are leniencies to enlarge that category this year, as I pointed out in the links in this email. Again, the reason for the leniency is to be able to reduce trips outside our home, to be able to reduce the time necessary for shopping, and to make it easier to find what we need without having to spend so much time or energy or emotional energy. In addition to that wider list for this year, I want to mention the following leniencies that I myself will be following, and I urge you to follow as well. And that is, usually in normal years, we say that if there's a product that is okay for Pesach use with no kosher for Passover supervision, it should be a new package that you get. This year, if you happen to have a new package already in your home, unopened, of one of these products that is permitted without any kosher for Passover supervision, like Hershey's cocoa powder, for example, among many others, feel free to use it even if it has been in your kitchen, even if it's been in your cabinet. The only thing you need to do is wipe the outside of the package. Even further, this year I would say, even if you have an open package of one of these products, if it is the kind of package where you are certain that no Chometz could have gotten inside, feel free to use that open package for this year. I'll give you an example. If you have, let's say, a canister of white granulated sugar. So white granulated sugar does not need any kosher for Passover supervision. Any white granulated sugar is fine. If you have a package, if you have a canister that's already open and you used half of it, it's in your cabinet. But if you know that you always only dip in a clean measuring spoon or measuring cup to take it out, and there is no chametz in it, feel free to go ahead and use that package as well. If you have any questions about how to apply this leniency, please let me know. Also, there are a number of items that many people have the practice to go out and purchase before Pesach, but they are not absolutely essential according to Jewish law. My recommendation is not to worry about it this year. For example, some people have a practice to always get a new toothbrush before Pesach, fearing that maybe there's a particle of food in your old toothbrush. If you want to replace your toothbrush, be my guest, but don't do so on my account. Make sure there are no overt particles of food in your toothbrush, you're good to go. Similarly, sometimes we make trips to the hardware store for various supplies. For example, plastic to cover our counters. If you can avoid going to the hardware store and just use newspaper, ordinarily newspaper is not sufficient. This year, newspaper to cover your counters is fine. Here's a general rule. I can't possibly anticipate all of the applications of this, but here's the rule, and it goes like this. If you need to go out of your house to get something for Pesach, ask me first. I will try to find a solution with what you already have at home to either eliminate that trip outside your home or reduce its length. I can't promise I will always have a solution, but my goal will be to be creative, to find ways to minimize going out. This year, I mentioned this briefly before, but let me repeat it. This year is not the year to go out shopping for new clothing, new shoes, flowers for our table, new dishes, platters. Do that another time, another year. Reduce all of those extraneous reasons traveling outside of our home. This is a year that if you do need cooking utensils, preferably use disposable. Using disposable also reduces the problem of taking dishes and pots and pans to the mikvah. I did discuss that in the last class that I gave, but using disposable reduces that and makes it easier. There is no need for a haircut before Pesach this year. My hair is getting quite long. It could be that this is the year that I actually start to grow a ponytail. We'll see. I will mention that this year, Friday, April 24th, is Rosh Chodesh Iyar. Being that it is Rosh Chodesh and a Friday, it is permitted to get a haircut, even though it is during the Omer period. So if you Hopefully, if by that time things are safe, if you want to make an appointment for April 24, that might work. But if that does not work, the ponytail route will always work. Here are some suggestions for adjustments at home that I'm planning to introduce and I suggest to you. I suggest using disposable washing cups at all of your meals, including your Seder, with a separate cup for each person. Normally, it is not the proper thing to wash Netilas Yadayim before a meal with a disposable cup. Many of us have very nice or beautiful Netilas Yadayim washing cups. This year, disposable is fine. I would also suggest disposable towels or napkins for each person rather than everyone reusing a cloth napkin or towel. For those of us that have children at home, especially this year, there may be an increased supply of crafts. Therefore, please be careful about craft products. For example, Play-Doh and modeling dough contain actual Chometz. They need to be put together with the stuff that you sell. Finger paints may contain Chometz. Crayola, glitter dots, Crayola easy peel crayon pencils contain actual Chometz. They should be put away with what you sell. However, all other Crayola products, including silly putty, are Chometz free. And if you have any questions about that, I'm happy to repeat that list at another time. Many people this year may need to kosher utensils that they use year-round in order to be able to use them for Pesach. This is especially true if by koshering what you have, you can eliminate a trip out to the store to buy something new. It can also help reduce the cost of new items, utensils, especially if a person has never made Pesach before, or if a person was planning to be away for Pesach and finds themselves at home unexpectedly. So, as I mentioned before, I have a resource link in the email of do-it-yourself, how to kosher your kitchen. If there is interest, I would be happy to do a complete session on the subject of koshering your kitchen for Pesach. Please let me know if that interests you, and we can schedule that if necessary. For this year, I do want to mention a couple of cautions and leniencies. In a regular year, my recommendation is not to kosher anything that is plastic. Plastic is a material that ordinarily we do not kosher. This year, it is fine to kosher plastic utensils. Excuse me. And plastic utensils can be kosher with hagala, boiling water. Again, I'm happy to go over that at some other point, but that's an important thing. I also mentioned, let me just repeat it, I mentioned that many of us kosher our ovens using the self-cleaning oven cycle. Our personal experience has been that very often when we use the self-cleaning cycle, our oven breaks. Don't take the chance of your oven breaking on Erev Pesach or the week before Pesach. You can kosher your oven by cleaning it, leave for 24 hours without using it, put it on high, 550 for 1 hour, and then that koshers it for Pesach. The only thing you have to do on Pesach is put a piece of aluminum foil down before you put any pot or utensil on the racks. We will hold a Zoom Siyum for firstborn on Wednesday, April 8th at 7:30 a.m. That Zoom information, the access information is already on our Adath Zoom room on our website. If you are going to participate, you should make sure that at home you have a special breakfast prepared to celebrate. Because remember, the idea of the Siyum is it will be Dr. Stanley Nattel who will be making the Siyum. So he'll be making a Siyum, completing the study of a volume of Talmud, which is a celebration for him. And it's a celebration for all of us to join together. So we're celebrating him. Because we're celebrating, that takes precedence over what would ordinarily be the fast for the firstborn on the day before Pesach. So remember to celebrate with that breakfast. Regardless, it is my strong recommendation that no one should be fasting for any reason. This is not a time to get dehydrated. It is not a time to not feel well for even the slightest reason. Do not fast on the day before Pesach. Many of us have a custom. There is a practice on Wednesday, Eruv Pesach, to gather and to burn Chometz that we searched for and found the night before, Tuesday night. This year, please, number one, do not gather. And number two, do not burn. Even if you do it by yourself at home, it is a risk. Do not take the risk of burning Chometz. Burning Chometz is not a requirement. It is only a practice. It is not a halacha. It is possible to get rid of Chometz in any manner. So I will mention an alternative manner. First of all, we have the custom the night before Tuesday night, before searching for Chometz, to put out 10 pieces. This year, I suggest putting out 10 very small pieces. My suggestion is Cheerios. My further suggestion is 1 Cheerio in a plastic bag. 10 bags, 10 Cheerios, put them out, search your house, and find them. The next day, when it comes time to get rid of the Chometz, again, do not burn it and do not gather. Put the Cheerios, take them out of the bags. The bags, throw away in the garbage. The Cheerios, flush down the toilet. Please be careful. Do not overload your toilet. I think most toilets can handle 10 Cheerios, but be careful. The last thing you want is a plumbing emergency just before Pesach. Because this year, the first 2 days of Pesach are Thursday and Friday, in order on Friday to be able to cook for Shabbos, we require an Eruv Tavshilin. I have provided you on the email that I sent earlier, and if you ask me, I'm happy to send it again, a link that is a short article that explains exactly what this is, how to do it. If you have any questions about it, please let me know. Keep in mind that even with an Eruv Tavshilin, which allows us on Friday to cook for Shabbos, all ovens and burners must be set on from before Yom Tov. That means Wednesday evening before candle lighting, they must be set. And even with an Eruv Tavshilin, we must complete our Shabbos cooking early in the day on Friday, the second day of Pesach. One of the most difficult and painful requirements of this year is to not invite guests, even family, even parents, grandparents, children, grandchildren, even if they will be alone, guests, friends, guests, even if they will be alone, even if they have never run their own Seder, even if they have never been to a Seder before. I must tell you, this is the issue over which I have lost the most sleep. So first, I would say to please keep the proper perspective over this very difficult requirement. And the perspective is the one that I shared this past Friday in the Parsha point that I sent out. And if you did not receive it, I'd be happy to send it to you if you let me know. It is quoting from Miriam Peretz. And the bottom line is, remember, the reason that we're alone, or the reason that someone we love is alone, is in order to save lives. Social isolation helps. We go through a difficult experience this Pesach in order to be able to have our parents, our grandparents our children, our grandchildren alive to be able to celebrate together with God's help next year. Please remember, all of the evidence shows that even if a person went through a quarantine or self-isolation, one can still have the virus with no symptoms and transmit it to someone else, especially an older person, but even a younger person, for whom it may be deadly. Don't take any chances. Jewish law, as well as civil law, is clear that preserving life and health of ourselves and others is the highest priority, even if it means someone we love is going to be alone on Pesach. At the Seder, if you are sad because you are alone, which is understandable, or you're thinking about someone else who is alone, which is understandable, also think about the priority of the two mitzvos in the Torah, the biblical obligations, the chai bahem, and you shall observe the laws of the Torah in order to live by them and not, God forbid, to die by them. And also the mitzvah in the Torah, v'nishmartem ma'od minafshosechem. You shall be exceedingly cautious concerning preserving and protecting your health. Those are mitzvos. Those are commandments from God with the highest priority among any mitzvos. And let's remember, please, that Pesach, as much as it is a family holiday and a holiday, a social holiday and a gathering holiday under normal circumstances, but let's also understand that the essence of Pesach is that we commemorate that we left being servants of Paro and we entered the service to God. And that means to follow the commandments that God has given us. Remember how often Moshe says to Paro in the Torah, Shlach es ami, let my people go. But you remember that's not the complete quote. The complete quote is always, Shlach es ami v'ya'avduni. Let my people go, says God, that they may serve me. We serve God by observing his commandments and by keeping to the priority of those commandments. I mentioned this before, let me repeat it. Zoom is not permissible on Yom Tov. It is not a way to have connection with our family and friends at the Seder. I understand there's a lot of publicity about certain rabbis in Israel who have permitted this practice. I don't want to say anything critical other than to say their opinion has been completely rejected by all normative Orthodox rabbis. It is outside of the pale of mainstream Orthodox thought. I did give you resources in the links email, and especially the one which I mentioned before, A Different Pesach, Ideas for a Solo Seder, has wonderful suggestions, creative suggestions to be able to navigate this difficult situation. I urge you to check out that and the other links in the email. I have a practical suggestion. I plan to do this with my children and grandchildren who won't be here. And also, you may choose to do it with your family members, especially those who will be alone, or if you're alone, and also for the guests that you would have invited, that you would have wanted to have. And this is a suggestion from Rabbi Yosef Rimon, and it is an excellent suggestion. And it goes like this. Erev Pesach, this year Wednesday, April 8th. The afternoon before Pesach is itself also a Jewish holiday. It is the time during which the Karban Pesach, the Paschal offering, was brought to the Beis Hamikdash and offered. And the Talmud describes that during those hours that the Karban Pesach was being offered in the Beis Hamikdash, the Holy Temple in Yerushalayim, the Leviim, the Levites, would sing the song of Hallel, of praise to Hashem. It itself is a type of a holiday. My suggestion is, get ready for Pesach early, maybe an hour or so before the time. Get dressed up in your Yom Tov clothes and do a Zoom session with your family, with your friends, just before candlelighting. Let all the grandchildren sing Manashtana, and let all the grandparents hear them. Sing songs, sing Dayenu together, sing Hallel. Remember, the afternoon before Pesach starts is a time when Hallel was recited in the Beis Hamikdash. It's appropriate to sing the paragraphs of Hallel, of praises to Hashem. Tell the story to your children and grandchildren if they're not there. Be creative. Arrange a virtual afikomen hunt. Maybe you hide the afikomen somewhere in your house, hide a piece of matzah somewhere in your house, and your children, grandchildren on Zoom, ask them to try to direct you, walk through the house to try to find it. And then after Yom Tov is over, send them a present. Be creative and come up with an idea. Now, I would be happy to offer any help or assistance or resources in helping you to arrange or to use Zoom for this purpose, but this is an excellent suggestion from Rabbi Rimon. It captures both the letter and the spirit of the law, and I suggest it strongly to you. Another suggestion is, I got this idea from Rebbetzin Schmidman, and that is, she, in her situation, a grandparent will be alone, and what she's arranging is that all of the grandchildren are being asked to pick one of the steps of the Seder. There are 15 steps to the Seder. We sing that song, Kadesh, Urchatz, etc. at the beginning. 15 steps, 15 stages. Each grandchild is taking a different step, a different section, or you could do it by paragraphs of the Seder. And each grandchild is putting something into an envelope. Could be whatever the grandchild wants. It could be a photo, a poem, a thought, an idea, anything that they want to share about that section of the Haggadah. Label it, collect the envelopes before Pesach. Then, when Pesach starts, in this case, the grandmother will have 15 envelopes. And as she is going through the Seder by herself, as she reaches each section of the Seder, she will open that envelope and have something from her grandchild about that part of the Seder. I think it's a great idea and something to be emulated creatively. We are in the process of mailing out our bulletin. It's not really right to call it a bulletin. We are not able to produce a bulletin. Our staff and our lay leadership is working very hard remotely, but we are not able to put together producing a bulletin. We are sending out a mailing with just several sheets of paper. And I hope that you'll be understanding that we were not able to do the full bulletin. Included in that mailing will be a schedule for Pesach 5780-2020. Now, even though our building is closed and our prayers together are suspended, again, unprecedented, it is still the proper thing that when we pray at home, we should pray at the same time that prayers would be offered in the synagogue. That's the reason that we are sending the schedule of when the prayers would be in the synagogue so that you can do them at home at the same time. Also, if you are praying at home, it is a good idea to have a set place in your home that is your prayer place. Likewise, it is also the proper thing, even when praying at home, to be dressed properly, appropriate to prayer, even if we are at home. Remember, I've shared this already with you, to arrange for the sale of Chometz. This year there are two special instructions, which I've described before, which I sent out by email before. If you did not receive it, let me know. I'll resend it to you. But please make sure you take care of that by Tuesday, April 7th at 7 p.m. Some people have the custom on the first night of Pesach, after they finish saying Mariv, to recite the Hallel prayer. That does not apply when a person is praying by themselves, and that can be omitted. On the first day of Pesach, normally we say the prayer of Tal, of dew, and that is when, during Musaf, we omit the line, Mashiv Haruach U'Morid Hagoshem. That prayer for dew is only said in a minyan. There's no problem with saying it by yourself, but when you say Musaf on the first day of Pesach, you should omit Mashiv Haruach U'Morid Hagoshem for the rest of the spring and summer season. When we pray at home, we omit Kaddish because it requires a minyan. We omit Baruch Hu. We omit the reader's repetition. We omit the public Torah reading, obviously. However, it is still the right thing to study the Torah reading and the Maftir and the Haftorah for each day. You can find those in your Siddur, and if you have a problem finding it, let me know, and I will make sure that you have it. Later this week, I'll be sending out an email on the subject of starting Shabbos early. Basically, in very short form, every Shabbos, there is a range of time when we are allowed to start Shabbos. There's the latest time, the latest candle lighting, which is 18 minutes before sunset, but there's also an earlier time, and that's called Plag, and that varies every week. It's 1.25 variable hours before sunrise, before sunset, so it varies every week. We produce a calendar that has the time, so that means that, for example, this coming Friday, if a person were to start Shabbos and light their Shabbos candles at 3 p.m. in the afternoon, it would not be valid because it's too early. And that's why you need to check out the time for Plag to know when the earliest time is. On every Shabbos, you can choose what time you want to start Shabbos. As long as you daven Mincha by Plag and Mariv after Plag. Again, I'll be sending out more information about this later in the week. This year will be a very, again, unusual and difficult experience. Those people who are saying Yizkor, for many people, it is a prime aspect of their connection to the synagogue, coming to the synagogue. However, the fact remains that Yizkor does not require a minyan in order to say. As I mentioned before, I provided a link of the complete text of the Yizkor service, and it is said on the 8th day of Pesach, you should include it at that time. There is no question that this year will be a challenge. I want to urge you to feel free to ask me anything, anytime, by email, rabbi@adapt.ca. Call me directly on my cell, 514-513-2995. Both myself, Rabbi Alex, are available to you at all times for any assistance, any questions, any difficulty, any guidance, any issues that come up. We are also available to provide volunteers to bring supplies, groceries, trip to the pharmacy, anything else that you may need, whatever you need, or if you know someone else who needs something or just needs a phone call, please let us know. We are here to help. We're working full time. We want to help. I want to conclude with this. I ask you to remember this, and I hope that I will remember it. And these are the words of Jeremy Ortman, who is a therapist in New York. And he said as follows: whenever I've asked people what thing they are most proud of in their lives, it's always connected to times of pain or strife or struggle. and how they got through it. This experience has the potential to provide us with the opportunities to reach our greatest heights. I wish it for you. I wish it for me. Have a very happy and healthy Pesach.